So our vision within the CLARE project and our overarching vision within the whole of the community is communities are all people be supported and engaged, and everybody can achieve their full potential. We have 4 objectives underpinning our approach, and it's to increase support for vulnerable adults and older people, create and use that social capital and the goodwill within communities, and harnessing that to people that really need the support, strengthen those neighbourhoods and build resilient communities. So by giving people meaningful opportunities to engage, building their skills and capacity, you build more resilient communities, which improves people's mental health and well-being overall, and deliver a more cost-effective and efficient model of care. So instead of always responding to crisis situations, how do we introduce early intervention? How do we make people feel safe and well and supported, that they're not always ending up in crisis situations? So we have 5 strategic outcome indicators. It's not easy to say when you're standing up here, but 5 strategic outcome indicators which underpin, which kind of evidence, which we use to evidence are we actually have an impact. So 1, improve independence and feelings of health and well-being, and we monitor that with our service users and with our volunteers who engage using the outcome star monitoring tool. Increase volunteering and skills development. We encourage meaningful volunteering, we monitor and we track that. Enhance employability prospects and economic activity. For us, it's much more not just about health, it's actually about community development, it's actually about changing communities, it's empowering people, it's improving their sense of health and well-being, it's creating jobs, it's creating confidence, it's creating skills so people can move forward and be resilient. Delay early reliance on adult health and social care services, so that early intervention, that not responding to crisis situations, getting in early, and reduce non-elective hospital admissions, missed appointments, and early entrance into residential care. So these are the things that we map and track. So our model in practice, so this is actually, it's very simplistic, it's very practical, and it's very simple. So we receive a referral into our project from the Integrated Care Team in Grove. The project is only operational as a pilot in North Belfast. Grove Health and Wellbeing Team. We also receive referrals from Meadowland and Carlisle and the Mater Hospital social work team. They'll refer under us under 3 criteria. 1, early intervention, where you delay the need for services. So somebody comes in front of them and they're not quite eligible and need of services, but there's real recognition that there is some need of some kind of support to delay them tipping into services. The other is enhanced support, so where somebody may be known to health and social care and they may have a package, but actually they're incredibly social and isolated, it's not meeting all their needs. You know, they're having multiple challenges with their health, they have little family support, and there's a need for more wraparound service around that person to support them. And the other is almost like a crisis response. So if somebody is in hospital and there is a need for hospital discharge, they have no family, they have no support network, who's going to actually go over the house for them, get them a little bit of shopping, turn the heat on, support them for a couple of days through that period. So we offer that as well. And the new initiatives that we have at the moment is also supporting people to engage in self-directed support and personalisation. So we have a new pilot that's just literally just been put on the SDS Implementation Action Plan, how we support people to engage in personalisation. So when someone comes in as a referral, they then come into our system, and then Mandy will go out and meet with them and carries out a very person-centred, holistic approach with them, looking at all the aspects of their life, looking at everything from their housing, their finance, their social connectedness, their family supports, everything around them. And I'll not talk too much about it because Mandy will go into that, but really looking at what's the appropriate and timely supports for that person, what, being less socially isolated by connecting into social opportunities, getting support to access their finances. For some people, it's very challenging even getting to the bank, and that's an issue, and those are very disabling things that would mean that they would maybe opt into going into residential care or nursing care way before the time they actually need to go there. So she was referred to reduce social isolation and promote her independence to enable her to live independent for a period longer. So the interventions and outcomes, she met with Mandy, had her person-centred living plan created. On the basis of that, she was matched with a CLARE community champion. At the moment, well, since we've been operating since 2012, we've had over 50 community champions come in and volunteer with us. So she had 135 hours of volunteering support over 1 year and 7 months. And that type of support was very much befriending, very much focused around herself. So exactly what she needed. So she needed support to get to medical appointments. Quite often they'll be driving schemes, but actually somebody may need someone to go in with them. act as a listening ear, come beforehand, get them ready to be prepared to go to the appointment. Accessing finances, getting to the bank was a big issue for her. And engaging in social opportunities, just getting out of the house. And the impact of this for her personally, there was a 20% increase in feeling socially connected, 30% increase in feeling well, and I suppose 40% increase in feeling treated with dignity and respect, because she had her own choice and control. And from that basis, she was able to stay in her home for a year and a half longer. And then it was a journey for her. She ended up having a hospital episode, and then at that period of time felt that it was her time to go on into the nursing home. She'd had that little bit of independence for longer. And then we supported that transition period as well, where the CLARE community champion supported that her throughout her time in hospital, coming up, bringing her those sort of things like pajamas. If you don't have a family member, well, that's no problem at all. This one here. So we became operational April 2014. That's really when we went live. But prior to that, we had a piece of research around looking at, okay, what is it people need? What are the practical supports they need? And how can we provide that? How can communities have a partnership with health professionals that can meet those needs? So we went live in April 2014, and since then we've had 182 referrals across the integrated care teams. And also now we're piloting with a GP practice to look at social prescribing, so looking at early interventions. So quite often you might use, social work might have a referral from a GP, and then when they go out to assess, the person's not actually in need of services just yet. So we're trying to get in there that little bit earlier to sort of reduce that process and have a GP refer directly into us. So we've made 161 connections to support an organisation. So one of the things about the project, it's not about us providing a service. The first thing we do is, after the assessment, is look at what services are out there, what resources are out there, what's the most appropriate and timely support for that person, and connect them into the existing services and support, and help them to engage in those existing services and support more importantly. And then where there are the gaps, then we will use social capital. We will use that social capital, we build that evidence base up. That evidence base will go back around Health and Social Care Board. So in future commissioning calls and in future shaping of services, they will include these very practical needs that people have that are not currently in the services that are provided. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. So it's more of a model, and it's more of a testing and piloting, taking that evidence base, taking that information, and having a say of influence, or people having a say of influence, and actually these are the types of services that we really need, rather than the services that just kind of provide bits for us. As I said, 53 community champions recruited. It never ceases to amaze me. We had a volunteering event last night, and it never ceases to amaze me the goodwill that is actually within communities and within people themselves. We've had 53 people engage with us in 2.5 years. We have a current database, or a current load of 36 volunteers. They go above and beyond. They do amazing work, and they are an absolute lifeline to some of the service users. The stuff that they do is just great. We've had requests from people to help look after pets, so somebody doesn't have to get rid of their dog who's maybe been their lifelong friend, and then they can't care for it any longer. We have volunteers looking after animals. We have volunteers taking people to outpatient appointments, X-ray appointments, eye appointments, podiatry appointments, going in and doing befriending. One of the most probably the most successful things we've had, we always look to try and get people to engage in existing groups that are happening. And people really, especially older people, get a lot out of art groups and the therapeuticness of going and doing a little bit of art. But for some of them, the actual challenge of going from their home into a group environment was really difficult. So we wanted to say, how could we bring that art to people? So we looked at how we could train up and skill people who were interested in volunteering, maybe had a bit of interest in arts and crafts, to go in and do one-to-one art with people in their home. And that's been absolutely amazing. And we have 10 volunteers who go out and they do one-to-one arts and crafts for an hour in somebody's home, and the benefit they get from that. And you'll actually see a wee bit in the film that we have of that happening. It's unbelievable. But it's these really simple things that you can do that have such a fantastic impact.
Can I clarify, is this just with the Belfast Trust?
It is with the Belfast Trust, yes. And it's in North Belfast. We're hoping that through the Chronic Disease Prevention Hub and the Integrated Care Partnerships, that the model will be scaled across Belfast. And there's a lot of interest from other areas. You know, it's very much about getting this evidence-based and influence this way of working because it makes sense. It's just practical and it's common sense and it just works.
So it's not going to happen outside of the Belfast, just?
Not yet. Not with ourselves anyway, which is such a shame.
In the future, and I think when I come to talk, it's about also that, you know, if you like this model and you think that it works, about us as social workers saying, well, why can't it be everywhere else?
Yes.
Because it's a truth. I mean, one of the things, my background is community development. I worked in the community sector for 17 years, and that's my background. And I think that this is the first time where I think that what we're doing is not tokenistic. It's actually true partnership working with our health colleagues. It's just completely working together for people to have a better quality of life. And it works. And for me, it's a pleasure to work in it because it really is a true partnership between our health colleagues and the community sector. And it's going very well. And we would like to influence that to happen on a wider scale. So we've delivered, or our volunteers have delivered, over 1,600 hours of meaningful volunteering since April 2014, and that's incredible, as I say. And we don't have any problem with getting people to get involved, because once you tell them the emotive stories, and once you tell them the impact they can have, and you say to them 1 hour a week or 1 hour a fortnight, and you're going to change someone's life, and it's an easy sell for us, and we get people getting involved. They gain skills, they come in. I mean, our volunteers are very, very well supported. It's not just about service users, it's about community development. Volunteers will come in, they have an induction process, they have a training process as well. They also are asked, you know, what's the journey for you? Is it about you creating friendships? Is it about you wanting to give back into your community or to help somebody? Is it about you wanting to live in a new career? What's your journey? And then we try to support them on that journey. So they can engage in training, they can 17 of our volunteers over the last 2.5 years have went on to gain qualifications and jobs within the care sector as personal assistants and working in care homes across North Belfast. And some of the care homes in North Belfast have come and said to us, if you have any volunteers that are working with you, that have gone through your training, have had the experience, send them up for a job interview. That's changing communities for us, and that's what it's about, you know. Okay, so innovation and practice. So as I've probably actually mentioned all this, but community approach. So as I said, this is the first time I really feel in my years of working within the community that we're very bad at saying what we do. We're very fluffy about it. So we do a few art groups, or we do a few this trips, or we do a few that. But actually, this is the first time we're really working in partnership to improve people's quality of life. The project was awarded the Belfast Trust Chairman's Award in 2015 for this innovative approach, for this true partnership working between our health colleagues and the community. So that was a big achievement for us, and we were delighted to have the recognition of that. Early intervention, so through the integrated care partnerships, which are the drivers of the Transform Your Care agenda and personalisation and all of those initiatives, we're going to be piloting the first GP social prescribing model within Belfast. And that is about that early intervention. That's trying to stop that crisis response. So that is about working with somebody in a holistic way, that they do attend their medical appointments, that they don't turn up at A&E, you know, when they don't need to, that you're giving them some health education, that you're supporting them in their everyday life, that you actually stop having this sort of crisis response all the time, and you actually have a real impact at an earlier stage. And in personalisation, not last year, but the year before, we were very fortunate to engage in the Northern Ireland Social Work Innovation Fund, and we were supported to carry out a piece of research around self-directed support. So self-directed support's amazing. It just, everybody can see how it can work, but then there's lots of challenges for somebody with multiple health complications to actually engage in that and managing that process. So we were very fortunate to do a piece of research around looking at what are these challenges for people, what are the barriers, and what would enable them to go forward. And through that piece of research, we then were able to pull together a paper that said that everybody knows this is the way forward, this is what will work for people, being in control of the type of care that you want, when you want it, the flexibility, all the things that will actually really keep you at home and keep you well and give you a good quality of life. But then you've got to become an administrator. You're almost like your own personal little business. And how do you manage that? with multiple health complications, and maybe you never even had that skill set to start off with, because it is a skill set. So from the basis of that piece of research and the support that we had through the Northern Ireland Social Work Innovation Fund, and the recognition that they were behind us and said, yes, this is a worthwhile thing for us to do, we were able to go forward then and work with the SDS and DP implementation group. And we're now on the action plan for the Belfast area to look at, okay, how can we work proactively with people to enable them to engage and remove these challenges? So almost like a back house office administration function for them, so they can get on with designing their own care and support how they want, and they don't have the worries of all the administration functions that come with that. So we're one of the pilots for the Belfast area as well, and then that learning will go back to how things should be shaped going forward. And then this year as well, or last year as well, we were awarded the World Health Organization Belfast Healthy Cities Award for Engagement for Change. So really about communities, really embracing, really sort of aligning, all this social capital, all this goodwill, all this fantastic stuff that's going on, and aligning it where it should be going to. And that's one of the awards we've achieved for that. So I am going to hand you over to Mandy now. That was very quick, wasn't it? At the end.
Right.
Yeah, so we have, I'm going to hand you over to Mandy. She can talk about probably what you're more interested in is the social work role within the CLARE project. And then also we have a little film at the very end, and it probably gives a much better reflection of what it means for people than what we could ever do. But do you want me to do your slide?
Yes. First of all, thank you for asking us to come. I'm going to talk much more broadly, because I know people are saying that the CLARE model is just in Belfast, but really what I want to talk about, a little bit about the role, but even more so about social work in general, and what I think the model means for social work, and what I've learned when I've been doing that, and lessons that I think that we all need to look at and think about for the future of social work. So I came to this role about 4 years ago. I kind of drifted into it, to be honest. I took a little bit of time. My background is in the Royal as a senior social worker, and I was there for about a decade part-time, and then decided I wanted to go a bit more full-time, and there was an opportunity to engage with very early sort of research with some clients around what they thought about the support they got, and a little bit of, how would you like to do things differently? What kind of model, how would that work? So really very just tentative questions with people, what they felt would make a difference to their lives. And really from that, I did that for almost 2 years, and then we developed the CLARE model, and it really has developed from the ground upwards. We have a fantastic computer system that we designed ourselves that helps us capture our activity, the statistics that Laura needs, because it's so important to be able to show, well, if this is a model, is it working? So I applied for the job. If I had seen the job advert, I would have said, well, I don't know very much about community social work. If I had seen that you had to get up and talk in front of people and be filmed, I'd have said, no, it's not for me. But I love the job, and I feel very privileged to be in the position that I'm in, and I think probably everybody would like the opportunities that I get to work preventatively and early intervention. So I'm not really going to talk too much. The role Laura has mentioned, I see everybody that's referred to the project, and I will go out and do an assessment. It's not a NISCC. I don't do the NISCC. I do a living plan, and I really sit down with the person and do a social work assessment, which we all do. But I am not sort of constrained by knowing what I can or can't provide. So I'll talk to a person about what they have, what connections they've got, what family, what their health is, all the things that we would normally look at, get a bit about what the person used to do, what their career was, and then ask them, what is it that you aspire to do? What do you want to do? What would make a difference to you? And where I feel quite liberated as a social worker is I will not say, no, we don't do that, or we can only offer you this little package of things. I say, okay, how do we make it happen? And sometimes when you ask people what they aspire to do, it's very simple things. It's like, well, I would love to be able to go to the shops and pick things instead of have a home help come and only get me the things that are on a list. Or I would just like to go out socially or get to the bank. So sometimes, they're easy things, and actually when you can do that for people, that's very empowering. So I will do that. I will go out and during that do an outcome star as well, and it's another thing when we go on to learning. No, that's okay. Oh yeah, we put up an outcome star. Maybe so this is one of the tools that we use for evaluation. So again, I have learned a lot because I think within my career in statutory social work, I don't know that I was asked too much to define what my work actually achieved, what the outcomes were, and whether I was working effectively and efficiently, and whether I should change the way I do things. And I certainly wasn't really asked for too many statistics about that or to use an outcome model. I think we're moving more towards that. We're looking at things like the Ascot model, and we have looked at some of that and what we're using at the moment. And everything is piloted and we're up for innovation and change, but we've been using the outcome star. So we will do a sort of, it's marked out of 10, and the PhD one's out of 5. So it'll be like out of 10, you know, how do you rate staying well? So it will vary for a person who maybe says, well, I've got health problems, but I don't want to see the GP, I don't care about it, I'm not doing anything, I can't get to my appointments. Or you can get to a point where someone's saying, okay, I recognise I've got a health problem, but I haven't been able to get to the GP. So they mark that, and then we go back, and the outcome star, you know, we have to buy that, it's licensed. But the nice thing about it is it's very visual. You know, you can bring that back to somebody and show, you know, look, here's where you've made improvements, here's where we've stayed the same. So we use that along with, I would say as well, it's looking at all those sort of how you measure outcomes and success. So we would look at service users and carers giving us feedback, people who would make referrals or make us referrals, that they give us feedback as well. And again, it is about social work as a profession needs to sell itself and needs to show what it is that we do. And I know from lots of years of experience about the great work that happens like in the community and hospitals and how much difference we make. But I think we're not good at, you know, doing it. And I have learned so much from Laura and Laura Wiley from the community, because they've had to over the years to get funding. You've got to say what it is you're trying to achieve, how you'll measure that outcome, what tools you'll use for it, and sell it. And you'll see within the stuff that we gave you, we have a lovely impact card that we've done recently that shows, you know, the type of statistics that Laura's talking about. And it's so important for social work to show that we know we make a difference, but it's not enough anymore to say that you do, you've got to prove it. And that has been a big area for me, and I'm still working on that, about incorporating that into part of my assessment. Positive risk taking, again, you know, in the hospital, you know, we would have assessed people for going home and can you do the stairs, and what are the risks, and what are the risks of mobilising, and what are the risks, you know, and we have to look at risk, but also if we want to keep people at home, we have to have a more embracing attitude to risk taking. And there's, I know Positive Futures are doing some training fairly shortly about what does that look like then for social work, and how we make our assessments, and how you balance that against, you know, the risk that somebody could come to harm. But if we want to keep people at home, we have to look at risk. And I have, again, been a bit surprised coming out from the hospital into the community, you know, some of the things that, you know, we won't take risks about getting people's money or going and picking up a prescription, or you know, maybe even diverting from what a set range of tasks are. So people say, well, we're not you know, allowed to do that, and you just think we just need to get a wee bit more flexible, and that is going to be a journey for us. The value of early intervention and prevention, that is a luxury, and I know that, to be able to get to that whole shift of early intervention and support to people. And it does make a big difference when you can get in early. And we have just started, Laura mentioned the GP pilot, which is the whole idea that, you know, somebody presents at a GP rather than the GP saying, oh, there's a prescription for an antidepressant, or, you know, okay, come back in 3 weeks, and, you know, it's just left until the point of crisis that we, with one of the GPs, are going to take referrals. And I've had 2 referrals already, and they've been actually very appropriate, because I sort of thought, well, you know, you open this up and we'll get 50 referrals, but it has been good. And in some ways it goes back to way back at the start when we had social workers who did sit in GPs, surgeries and community, and it's recognising you can pick people up there, and actually it's saving money because you're getting in early, you're making sure things are smooth, you're connecting them to all the community resources, and in the long run that does save money. And then the shift in relationship between service users, carers and social work. Again, that's about being able to go out to people and not be constrained by saying what I can't do. And probably one of the big learning for me is about we do need to sweat the small stuff. I know people say don't sweat the small stuff, but it actually matters. You know, things like how do people get their money? How do they get their shopping? How do they get to appointments? How are they socially connected? And if you take time to look even at how do they get transport to those things, what are the barriers, that makes a huge difference. So you do need to get in at that early stage, and that's where we're positioned, where, you know, we do help out people who have very complex needs as well, but, you know, I think the real value is that early intervention, and I haven't been able to do that a long time in the statutory side of things, so that has been a real joy to get back to that. And as Laura mentioned, the whole shift, you know, in that partnership and meaningful partnership, and that, you know, I have learned so much from the community aspect of working as well, and just how, you know, when you connect someone to a group, and maybe that person, they're all from a similar area, and then somebody knows somebody else, and then, you know, so it's not just one connection, you make lots, and people say, oh, I know them, and, you know, I'll go and visit them, and there's much more output that can happen through that working relationship. And then finally, because we will show the film, I want to mention the strategy for social work, because again, I think this sometimes these things sit in limbo and maybe we don't, but if you look at the strategy, everything that we've talked about is in our strategy for social work. You know, we talk about the importance, and I have to read this because I don't know them off by heart, I'm not that good, but strategy priority 3 is about, you know, the importance of delivering outcomes and how we measure outcomes. Strategy 5 is about person-centered services being more flexible, and I think we really do need to embrace self-directed support, and there are huge changes ahead for us. You know, the kind of drivers that are around, and the, you know, they talk about rapid and continuous change that's happening, but it's so important for social work to be creative and to embrace change. And you know, we have been to lots of events. We've been over to Stirling, where they are looking at self-directed support and support planning, and one of the models that we've looked at over there is where they will employ somebody privately to come in and do the support plan, and then off they go again, and it doesn't have to be a social worker. And I think what I'm finding is that all the tasks that social work blends together are being sort of asset stripped. So you'll get people who are going to be social prescribers, you'll get people who are going to you know, be connectors and are going to be signposters, and yet, you know, unless social work gets in there and says, no, hold on, we do all of this and we do it really brilliantly, we will lose our role in the future. And it's so important to embrace change and to say, okay, things are changing, how do we as a profession actually make sure that we are the ones who are sitting in the GP surgery and not a volunteer who is, you know, who won't know when something is serious or not serious. How do we ensure that we are the people who are doing support planning with clients and leading the way? And we've always done that in the past, but I think what has happened is that we've kind of, I think we've just got set in accepting the status quo. And I'd say that, you know, read this strategy, there's so much in there about the need to take things forward and to really position ourselves in the profession, because I am very proud to be a social worker. I'm really privileged to have the role that I have within the CLARE project, and I feel that it really is about, it's not me, it's about me trying to represent social work. And in all the meetings that we go to where people say, oh, we get a volunteer to do it, we've said, no, that is actually a social work role. And when the project set up, you know, they were very clear that it needed a social worker in this project, you know, and you'll see that often where maybe social work, do you really need one? Another profession can do it. So it's so important for us to see where things need to be changed and to advocate for that, and on the ground level upwards, that we see where the gaps are, that we say, no, we're not happy with the way services are being provided and we want change to happen. And that's where I really hope maybe the CLARE model can spread to other places. You know, it is a model, so it can be moved to any region, and it can happen, and it's very simple. It's Laura as a manager, a community worker, and myself, and some volunteers. And in any area, that could happen and make a huge difference. That could do a whole. We got Public Health Agency fund half of it, and then we were the first Britain and Northern Ireland to get Big Society. Yeah. Laura's better. That's the bit where I don't want to know that.
I think in the very initial conversations, the Belfast Trust and Public Health Agency and the Health Board were all very interested in this model and way of working, and it very much fitted with Transforming Your Care, the shift left and all this type of thing. But obviously there's no funding money to do that. The Public Health Agency said that they would match fund 50%. So I think Mount Vernon Community Development Forum were very forward thinking, very passionate about what they wanted to do. For us, and it's a community development. This is going to change communities. It is about health and social work and supporting people, but actually it's going to do the wider impact of this in local communities, specifically disadvantaged communities, is going to be enormous, and we're seeing it on a scale now. So for us, we took an investment from the Big Society Capital Bank of the match funding, and then what we aim and are trying to do, and are working with the Health and Social Care Board to do, and the Trust and the PHA, is to demonstrate that this way of working actually saves the system money. So we have a number of economic algorithms pinned to the work that we do. So if for individuals that are supported to remain in their home, we would be considering or on the edge of entering residential care, for every week they remain in their home, it saves the system £220. For every outpatient appointment that we support someone to get to, now it's people who would find it incredibly challenging to get to an outpatient appointment. These are people maybe with a diagnosis of memory loss. You send them a letter, they can't remember they've got the appointment. You know, they have dementia, they're disorientated, they have no family or friends or networks to actually come half an hour early, give them a cup of tea, remind them they take a walk again, remind them they have their keys, their coat, get into a car or taxi with them, go with them, sit with them and return them home. That's what's going to work. That's what saves the system £196 when they don't turn up and stops them ending up paying any. So by us adding these algorithms to the work that we do, we're able to say, you know what, if you adopt this approach and this model, this is what it has in a small pilot, but this is what it could mean at scale across Northern Ireland on your health budget. And that's where we're at. So they've taken that leap of faith to do that, which I think, you know, was a tremendous part, you know, on their bit of their understanding of what this impact has for communities and for people. And that's how we're funding the process at the moment. So.
Does it continue? Is it a pilot for a short period of time, or?
We hope it will always be around. We're looking at how the model can be mainstreamed and work in with the initiatives that are coming up through Transforming Your Care. So through the Chronic Disease Prevention and Reablement Hub, which is a mouthful, that is all of this type of work. And they're really interested in this model, how we can support, you know, a larger scale of that, and how will that work, and how will that go forward to being the norm. You know, that this is an approach that should be the norm, because it is the way, as Mandy alluded to, you know, we are absolutely advocate social worker had to be involved in the project. This was not about community people assessing people and deciding what they needed. This was a true partnership of health colleagues and community working together, putting all of our resources and aligning around people who need the support, and to really change outcomes for people and outcomes for community and outcomes for society in a whole. So hopefully our work will be able to influence that at a larger scale, and we won't be a pilot that disappears, hopefully.
And can I say as well, and I probably should have said it at the start, we don't do what regulated services are supposed to do. So we don't do the personal care, and you know, it is that things that services don't provide. And I suppose, you know, we're a small project. We try to meet the need, and I'm thinking about the hospital. We have to target people who don't have support, because otherwise, you know, you could become the whole discharge process for people in hospital. So we do try to, you know, we've got a limited amount of resources, and we try to target them where they need to be targeted.
Can I ask the volunteers, are they usually from the local areas as well?
They can be. Initially, what we aimed to do was we went out and carried out like a number of information events and sessions and asked people, if you wanted to support somebody, what would you be willing to do? And people came forward and said, well, actually I could do X, Y, Z. And what they were willing to do mirrored a piece of research about what people needed. So then we kicked off originally in Mount Vernon with about a core group of 12 volunteers. That is actually growing by word of mouth through people coming through our website. We have volunteers who live in Newton Abbey, we have volunteers who live in Glengormley, Antrim Road, East Belfast, you know, quite a range across. So it started off initially as volunteers within a very local area, but it has grown quite considerably across North Belfast and beyond. We have a lot of people we don't call volunteers. They're informal, doing informal volunteering. So that is the neighbourliness. So we have very specific bespoke volunteers who come in, go through the induction process, they go through the access and I check, they're matched. If we ever go well, we say we have a fantastic computer system, you put the information of the volunteer in the information service user, and it creates an automatic match. So for us going forward, you can't retain all information if somebody's likes dyslexia in your head. We needed to have some IT technology, so we've got the speed dating of older people and befrienders going on very quietly in the background. But yes, there are lots of neighbourly people who we wouldn't say are our volunteers, but yes, they are the people in the local communities, the next door neighbours putting the bin out, person across the street who's going over with a hot dinner. But we don't count them as our volunteers, but they are included in that whole support plan, living plan aspect. To volunteers are very bespoke people who are doing very specific tasks on a weekly basis.
And just other areas of the difficulty of getting volunteers replaced.
Absolutely, and people will say North Belfast is the worst area for volunteers, and I do not say that. It's not a hard sell. When we go out and talk about what people need, keep it simple, keep it easy, keep it practical. And the emotiveness of it motivates people to get involved. I mean, we had our event last night, this volunteer event. We sent your existing volunteers, bring somebody along, bring a friend along. We did the film, we did the quiz, we had a bit of a meal, we had a bit of fun. And from the basis of that, there's another 4 people signed up. But those 4 people will have, a huge impact, in the next year. So it's about being creative and not overwhelming volunteers either. People need to come in for a reason, and they need to be not overwhelmed. You come in to do a little bit of volunteer, and all of a sudden you're running an event, you're doing something that counts, and they're writing their minutes. That's not what this is about. They come in, they dip in, and they do what they want, and they go in, they feel good about themselves, and they get a bit of experience, a bit of training, and something to benefit them. So it's always keeping that in mind makes it more successful.
In terms of what the outcomes you got there was percentages of how people felt their lives improved.
Yeah.
Did you use a specific scale for measuring that?
The outcome star that we use for that, so that was what Mandy was talking about. So we'll go in and Mandy will have that very person-centered conversation into very different aspects of their life and ask them to rate themselves on the 1 to 10. So it's a recognised evaluation scale of outcomes, and it's a good tool to use because it's a very good conversation initiator. And it's not that you say 1 to 10, it's involved in a conversation and embedded in that assessment process, and then you can go back in and say, well, how do you feel about that now? And you can sort of map and track that journey. And those assessments are carried out anything from 3, 6 to 9 months to 12 months, whatever is appropriate for the person.
And there are so many different tools. That's one of the challenges, is to find the right tool. And I think it's important to have that mix of service users, and because you can do a review of somebody at a point of time when maybe they've just been in hospital and things are really terrible, and through no matter what support you put in, things will still be down. So you have to take that as just one aspect of the outcomes.
From an operational point of view, these people on the scheme are considered Belfast Trust clients. Is that would they be included on our system as personalised as a key worker?
No. I mean, there will be, the majority probably are known to Belfast Trust. The ones who are preventative, there's a small core who aren't known to the teams, but the majority are known. And what I will get the referral. So the referrals can now be sent electronically to me, and then I will link back with the person making a referral, and so they will have recorded on the system that made a referral to CLARE, and they can keep the referral. But we're seen as a separate. It's the CLARE project and the referral. But I would keep then coming back with updates, and that works really well. And it is a good
For people that
partnership.
aren't known, is there any way of getting them onto our system so we know that?
To be honest, I think when we had that conversation at the start, we were told they didn't want extra, people loaded on, we would have been quite happy to, but it was more, no, like, don't give us more things. If you're working with that and they don't actually meet the criteria and they don't need to be known to you, then, you don't need to know. Was kind of what.
There's also a referral relationship that if there is somebody that we is come to us through early intervention, that you then feel actually, do you know what, they need to be stepped up here. We can.
Or I picked a client up on the street literally last week, and you're going, I don't need more clients, but it's that bit about where when you're in the community and you see somebody, and I literally stopped to give this lady a lift who looked like she was going to collapse, and then you have this conversation with her, and then you're like, okay, that's not good. And then, we have a great relationship with Grove that you can phone and say, look, I am going to put a referral through for this lady. Is she known to anybody, or things have gone downhill? So we have a good, I can equally come back and say, I have come across somebody that I'm concerned about, and I think they need to actually be, be referred through to you. So it is that partnership approach, really.
Can I ask, are you mandated to work with groups other than older people?
We work with people under 65 as well, and we have a lot of referrals actually now for sensory support, people who are visually and hearing impaired. So that's I think we've done very well with older people. I think it just fits very well, but we have some clients who are over 65 and quite a few with sensory issues as well.
Particularly men with learning disabilities who very often do find it difficult to make connections more widely in the community. It seems to be that some of the skills, some of the experience that you have might be transferred and could be applied to this.
We would have a good working relationship with Positive Futures as well, and that we have series of meetings and stuff, but they generally sort of move in that to learning difficulties in mental health.
Yeah, I'm the family worker for Positive Futures, and we work with children, so we're all under 18. And it's kind of around the same kind of model of issues, and it works very well.
It does, and we've a good relationship with Positive Futures that we feel, so one of the things is about, and this referral made to us, it's about looking at what's the appropriate service for that person, and remember that we're low level supports, using community social capital to support people. And there are excellent services out there, and it's being clear about where we refer and connect people on, into the appropriate service.
And we do have to, because we've got to, it's a pilot, and we can't overstretch either, But I think but I would always come from, if there was real urgent need and something, then we would look at it. But I think we have to be careful that we don't overstretch.
Would you have a waiting list of operations at the moment?
Laura tells me it's not a waiting list. There's about 10 people who I need to see, and there only is one of me. So it's not the volunteers, but it's literally, we are very popular, and it's great that we're getting referrals, but we will not start anything without me seeing the person. So
and it's very much about staying true to the model and not being pushed by numbers and saying, okay, the model is that this person-centered holistic assessment needs to happen, and it needs to happen at the length of time that it needs to happen with the person. So that's okay for people to be coming through. What we don't want to do is dilute what we're doing because it works, and being pressurized into taking a lot of people. We have about 10 people on our waiting list. I don't see that as a
no. And normally, what everybody who makes a referral now, I'll go back and say, it's going to be a week or two before you get seen. There's been people who have been jumped up the list because I've been worried, but no, actually, they need an appointment coming up with their family. We'll activate them, we'll do it quicker. So it's not just left there, and we do look at it and think, right, okay, who will prioritise if we need to, we'll make room for people. So
do you go to meetings or anything, let's say, for example, if there is social involved, but from trust, do you if your involvement, their involvement all together, like the partnership, do you attend meetings?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where the partnership, for to have true partnership, you know, and we have been involved in some very complicated cases, and we still are, particularly maybe around clients with dementia and risk, and where there's a great relationship with the volunteer. And so yes, because it is that bit about you get brilliant information from volunteers, more so than you'd probably get from home health, because that's not the same relationship. And if they're going in and spending time with somebody, they will come back to you and tell you, you know, that person has got worse, or their memory's really gone down more, or they're not eating properly. And I think it's really good for social services to harness that knowledge and include it, and it does happen.
Yes.
That's Laura's one.
Yes, well, we work with the Health and Social Care Board to identify, you know, what would be the cost benefits around services. It's very, very hard to put an economic impact or figure on preventative work. But so we were advised to choose a small amount of things that you do and that you can stand by. So we worked with the finance team in Health and Social Care Board, and they set the figures to us and said, okay, outpatient appointments, when somebody misses an outpatient appointment, it's £196 for the system. Someone referred for us to support to get to outpatient appointments maybe has missed a number of appointments, so they are probably more likely to continue to miss unless they have the type of support. So within our IT system, we put an economic algorithm against that output, if you like. So every time an outpatient appointment happens that we've supported someone to engage, that clocks up a figure. In terms of someone who's referred, who potentially is their GP maybe would be advising that they consider residential care, and they have expressed a desire to stay at home and maintain their independence, but they need additional supports to do that. And without those supports, it would be incredibly challenging for them. There's an economic algorithm around that period of time, week time that they stay, so £220 per week. The longer they stay within their home and within their community, and delayed going into nursing home or residential care. There's other algorithms they provided to us around hospital discharge. I haven't applied those because I think it's incredibly difficult to say that we are the one organisation or model that, yes, if we enable a discharge a little bit quicker, we can maybe say, well, that was, you know, they would have been there 1 or 2 days, or in terms of step down, they might have been there 2 or 3 weeks. But to absolutely stand by that, it's very difficult, you know, to sort of say, well, this absolutely did that. Whereas the sort of the outpatient, the GP appointment as well, I think it's £44 if you miss a GP appointment, and the residential. So we have a number of test case studies on specific people to sort of say, these are the inputs that will happen around that person. This maintained their independence, enabled them to stay at home. This is the cost of the system that's actually benefited. And I think it's to demonstrate on a small scale, actually, if this was at a large scale, you know, you could times that by whatever. And if you worked in this preventative way, this is the potential impact it can have.